Hi, and welcome to our podcast, Healing with Horses, the #1 podcast for equine guided therapy. I'm one of the hosts, Jacci Jones, and I'm a psychotherapist trained in transactional analysis.
And I'm Julie Lewis, the equine facilitator, and together we are going to guide you through the world of equine guided therapy. Don't forget to click subscribe to be notified of our latest podcast episodes. And if you get any value from this podcast, please support us by leaving a review. It really will help us out and motivate us to keep making these podcasts.
You can connect with us on social media at Equine Guided Therapy and subscribe to our YouTube channel to get regular videos all around equine guided therapy and mental health. We hope you enjoy this episode. So, welcome back to the next episode of Equine Guided Therapy with the wonderful Julie Lewis, who's an equine facilitator, and myself, Jacci Jones, and I'm the people person. I'm the psychotherapist.
And I'm the horsey one.
You're the horsey one. I'm the people person. So what we're going to talk about in this one, Julie, is using horses to heal the whole person, as in holistically.
Right. So
to me, there's kind of 4 areas where, as human beings, we maybe struggle in some areas and that horses can help us. So there's the physical side of things. We do equine guided therapy, but horses are used in equine assisted learning where people with disabilities or, things like that. Horses are amazing.
That is much more holistic as well. And it was in the old days, it was called Riding for the Disabled, and I used to take my pony there. And so we had children who maybe had very poor core stability and core strength. And so being able to be helped up and held up on a horse, and then that motion also helped them to develop some strength, core strength and muscle strength, and giving them something to focus on, to pick up the reins and hold the reins and things like that. So there's all sorts like that. So that's excuse me, that's a very physical kind of manifestation of what horses can do.
Yeah. And the grooming side of thing and the care side of thing, do you know what I mean? It's not just about being on the horse and riding. It's around them. Mucking
the connection,
all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it's the whole connection thing. And certainly with Riding for the Disabled and that kind of thing, they don't often get the chance to groom and do things. The very most they would probably have done in our day was help lead a horse to a stable, or lead a horse to an arena or to a mountain block or something like that, and they were always assisted and cared. But some of these ponies were just flipping marvelous the way they looked after the kids, really. As far
you've got a yard with I don't know how many horses on or whatever. You've got grandchildren, and I know that some of the people that have got horses on your yard have got kids. Are they different around little people or people in wheelchairs, say, for example, or can they sense disabilities?
I don't know so much if they sense disability. They certainly, like horses have an electromagnetic field, so do humans. And I think human terms, when you meet somebody you think, I just didn't like her vibe, she's not my kind of person. Horses feel that, and we give off that emotionally and through our own electromagnetic field. And of course horses feel that, so even with their owners they'll feel it. But similarly with people approaching, they can feel fear. They will tell if somebody's terrified of them. I've got one particular horse on the yard who's an absolute thug unless you put a little person in front of him. And he's gentle as a lamb, absolutely. And I've got more. I've got a few where we've had that situation arise. One of my now livery owners, a lady that worked for me before, has a 2-year-old daughter who has been on the yard since she was newborn, 4 days old, something like that. Her horse, the mum's horse, is a proper madam. You think twice before, or some of the owners think twice before wandering around behind her, just because she's a sassy mare. This little one wanders underneath her, pulls her tail around, brushes her tail, stands there, and this mare is like a dope on a rope with her. And then the next breath or the beat of her heart will look at the owner as if like, and you can go away.
Don't you
So they do sense vulnerability. And of course vulnerability also is an emotional state, so not in children, but certainly when, like you were saying there, so from our point of view with equine guided therapy, that's where it really helps. Because if somebody is coming to us for emotional release or emotional security or emotional an emotional lift. We don't have to do anything. Well, I don't, you do, but I don't. I've just got to find them the horse.
Yeah.
And then that will very, very often open up all sorts of emotions, which they then will obviously deal with you.
Yeah.
So in that situation, that's where, when we were talking about the holistic healing episode with horses, that's how it works. And I've said this before, and it's an awful term to use, witch fuckery, naughty words.
Yeah.
But I do the horsey bit, so I'm not the psycho bit. Psycho, yeah, I might be. That's been said before.
I do the psycho bits. Yeah, yeah.
But certainly, I'm when I'm dealing with our clients and the horses, you can see what's going on, and I can see by the reactions for some of the horses when perhaps somebody is holding back and isn't. There's a routine to what we do, and there's procedures that we follow when we're doing our treatment. It's not treatments, it's therapy, our sessions. I'm still a bit funny with the word therapy. You know what I'm like?
Yeah.
So sessions, then, for want of a better phrase, or my phrase. And when we're doing our sessions,
that people come to see us, it is that emotional release. It is that mindfulness and relaxation. And
yeah,
you always talk about, a spa with hooves or whatever. Being around them is just so chilling.
yeah,
Whatever way you want to phrase it.
yeah. So it is therapy. It's my therapy. It's always been my therapy, and I've said that all along.
Absolutely.
So yeah, and you'll see we've had a number of occasions and a number of clients who've started off and they're going through the process and going through all the motions and doing everything. And I can't tell, but I can look at that horse and think, right, well, you're going through the process with him, but there's no reaction from that horse. So something's not happening here. And that's usually when we go back and do our chat in the group or the chat with you, it will come out that there was something else going on. And that's so straight away it's given them the release or the confidence to talk about what they wanted to say, or perhaps even sometimes just the knowledge, because they won't have even recognized it themselves. And I can think of a particular session where we had where somebody had said no, nothing, and then actually after the end of the session realized, yeah, there was a lot going on that she hadn't recognized until that point.
And that's something I talk an awful lot with about clients. Is the first step for me is awareness, because once we're aware of something, then we've got a choice whether we're going to do something about it or not.
Yeah, and that was her thing.
The horses just mirror back whatever the person goes in the stable with, so you can't avoid it. Do you know what I mean? They pick up on whether there's resentment there, whether there's sadness, whether there's a bit of anger or aggression, or you're just stressed or whatever it is. They're going to pick up straight away.
Yeah, and they don't turn around and say she's sad or anything like that. Do you know what I mean? But their behavior will say, right, just step away again, refocus, go through the process and have a think and try and see what's happening. And there's a couple of pointers that I can use in the session with them, which is what happens. And like I said, they then step back and go, oh, actually, yeah, I never thought about that, but yes, now I've said it, it is really bothering me, or it has really hurt me, and I didn't realize it had hurt me until now. And actually I can see why it hurt me or why it's bothering me, and I can go forward and deal with that this time a bit better, maybe.
Because one of the things as well, I think, with us as human beings is we constantly have an internal dialogue that's going on, and it's usually a negative internal dialogue. It's like that critical parent in us. And one of the reasons why we do like a de-stressing and go for a walk before we go into the stables is to just let everything go. But it's easier said than done with a lot of people. If they've been caught in traffic when they've been coming, or if they've had crosswords with the partner when they left the house, or there could have been a bereavement in the family. We don't actually know
no
when they come to us, because we do ask them if there's anything that they think we should know, but it's up to the people, the attendees, how much they divulge with us.
Yeah.
But it's surprising what comes out in the sessions.
Well, yeah, and it's one of those things that we've said each time, because we're not only dealing with one horse. It's not that, oh, I didn't get on with that horse. The same reaction, if they're responding in the same way or reacting in the same way, the horses are going to respond in the same way, because they don't understand us. They don't understand ABC and the words we're using. They just understand the sense and the feeling. It's all very sensory. And that's where it actually helps, because again, there's other situations where maybe a client has been particularly drawn to a horse, and we've said, well, okay, use that horse, we'll do that today with you. And that in that situation, they feel that they can kind of let go, de-stress, cry, laugh, giggle, whatever, and talk about what it is that they wanted to talk about. And sometimes it's not massive. Sometimes it's just like, God, I'm changing my job, and it's just, I didn't realize how tense I was until now, and I just feel like, whoa, my neck's released. I'm breathing softer. Everything about me just feels like I've been for a long float and a relax.
And the other benefits that, you know, in the sessions and working with horses, like particularly with ours, because we do small groups of 4, or, you know, if you want to come as a family group, or, you know, we're going to start looking into maybe doing work people, you know, if I don't know, a group want to come from work. So the social side of things, do you know what I mean? And doing it together as a group, learning how to interact with other people and things like that. Because the way that we do it, they're never in the stable on their own, and we usually have 2 of them in there. So we asked this question when we were doing it last time about would they prefer to do it individually or, you know, with a group or couples. And it's interesting because some people wanted and they liked it in the group because all eyes weren't on one person, but then other people said it might have been nice to have gone off and done it individually. So, you know, it's working on the social skills as a group as well.
Yeah, and
Interesting.
I think that was interesting from the work point of view as well, because when you work with people, you only see them socially at a works event. There's usually food, there's usually alcohol, there's all the sorts of other things that you don't see the real person.
Yeah.
Don't know if that's good or bad for some people.
Yeah.
But again, if it's team building and things like that with businesses, and that kind of thing, you may well see certainly managers watching on, and people watching their managers, and leaders, team leaders, will maybe get a completely different sense of who that being is.
Yeah.
Because again, horses will bring out a whole new way of looking at somebody. Because if you've got somebody, say, it could be, and I'm being a bit flippant with it, but a very sort of powerful, dominant, high-powered boss who his expectations are always here and everything else is there, and you're always chasing to reach his expectations and feeling maybe that you never get it. It might be simply a case of he's so up there and he is recognizing it with all of you, but you don't know he's recognizing it, and he's not showing you that he's recognizing your achievements and your efforts and things like that. And sometimes being in a group situation like that brings everybody down to one level.
Yeah.
And is very leveling and enables people to function in a different way, to speak and act in because you do kind of all have to act in a particular way around animals, and it's all got to be very level. Just by the nature of us as humans, we would do that. We don't go running into any animal, whistles and bells. And so it is very leveling.
Yeah, if you're talking about a high-powered boss or something else, a horse has no concept of status.
No,
Whether you're I wanted to say the Queen of England, but we haven't got
we don't want one.
England, yeah. But whether you're a duke or a duchess, or whether you're, you know,
it's a leveler. Horses level it.
whatever.
And that's something that is daft as it sounds. That is a phrase that's used in the equine industry competitively a lot. That horses are great levelers. You can be a top show jumper, dressage rider, event, or whatever. Your young horse can ditch you just the same as mine can ditch me.
Yeah.
You know, at the drop of a hat, you've got his toe stomped on, or you've had a nudge in the face and you've got a black eye and all that. They're great levelers, and they very quickly see through disingenuity, whatever it's called, and they very quickly step away from anybody who isn't being authentic within themselves. You can't put an act on within the realms of dealing with horses, because it just doesn't work unless it's a forced sort of brutality type act, which is never going to be something that we do.
Not with a beast that's that size, because they're pretty overpowering. If they don't want to do something,
they say no, they mean it. They're gone.
That's it.
Yeah, you're not going to win.
Yeah, which is, you know, I think going back to the topic of this, you know, using horses to heal the whole person holistically, whether it's the social side of things, whether it's the physical side of things, whether it's the mental side of things. And more recently, for me, I think, and some of the people in the groups, It's like the spiritual side of things. You know, horses. I've posted some things up this week with some wonderful pictures because I'm the one that's usually taking pictures and snapping when people are doing it. That when they look at you, sometimes it's like they're just looking into your soul.
Yeah, it's deep. Yeah,
There
it
is
is.
something that connects us with horses, and I don't know what that is. That's
Mm.
the witch fuckery that you were talking about or whatever. It is. It's like they can see into your very
Yeah.
soul, and the spiritual side of it for me is quite big.
And I think that's, again, historically, we've had such a link with horses as far back. Go on to prehistoric etchings on walls. There's horses in it. You know, whatever it was, it Przewalski's horse, whatever. But we've had dealings with horses before we had wheels. You know, and ever since, and we're still dealing with horses. That historically we are joined with horses, and there's one I can remember somebody, an old Romany, not an old Romany, a long time ago, a Romany told me, a Romany wife said something to me, and I was visiting their caravan, mobile home. It wasn't a caravan, it was a beautiful mobile home, and I can remember being absolutely astounded that everything was covered in plastic. Absolutely everything. The suite and everything else was all plastic. It was all covered. It's all immaculate. A proper homemaker. It was all beautiful and everything else. The dogs were outside. They didn't come in the house. The dogs were chained outside, and everything. All of that. But these people had horses as well. They were traders, and she said something which I thought, gosh, that really astounded me. And they were saying, I think I'd commented, because I wasn't very old. I was only a young teenager. I'd commented something about, oh, my dog, don't you let the dogs in the house? My dog's part of the family, blah, 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 blah. And she said very clearly to me, no, dogs don't come in the house. Dogs aren't part of the family. Dogs are working animals for us. And I said, well, what about your horses? They're working animals. She said, no, horses are in our hearts. She said,
Oh,
horses are in travelers' hearts. And I said, oh, yeah, but they're out in the field. You keep them out in the field, blah, blah. She said, my boys would drink of a bucket of water that the horse had drunk out of. They wouldn't drink a bucket of water that the dog had drunk out of. And that has stuck with me my whole life, because I remember thinking, wow. So they do, you know, and again, it's just going back historically. That's the whole sort of deep sense of connection that people have with horses when they're through their own history. So they were Romany travelers,
yeah.
although they were sighted at the time. They had this beautiful permanent site, but historically they were travelers, and so that's how they were. And historically, horses are with us and have been with us humans for years and years and years. So the spirit, I get where you're going with the spiritual thing, and any horse owner will know if they need comfort, that's where they'll go. You look in your horse's eyes, and it can make you cry.
Yeah, literally,
You know, it does.
makes people emotional that aren't generally
Yeah,
emotional people. There's just that connection that I don't know an explanation for it, and I don't think I'd want to know it. It's just it is what it is. When it happens, it's magical. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so, you know, I think that's where healing spiritually, we were talking about physical healing. Again, they can be used for physiotherapy, you know, in some ways, because it might be a case of, you know, you need to be sat on a horse. I'm sorry, I'm clicking because something's just popped up in the corner. That rocking motion with some people when we've been used. There's all sorts of ways they can be used like that. And again, it's also that what is it? I can't even think of the word now. Just the cohesiveness and the going from the connections all the time of a rhythm and trying to keep in a rhythm. And certainly with when you've got youngsters who are maybe doing equine facilitated learning, then the routine of something and the rhythm of grooming a horse and brushing a horse and the routine of it is great for the brains, you know, getting their brain to work correctly, getting their brain to relax. Yeah, the cognitive behavior, that's what I was looking for. And certainly, you know, children with ADHD a lot of times are used because it's that calming effect, that the rhythm of a horse's whole being and the electromagnetic field that we've talked about previously. All of that is great for children and youths who maybe be struggling, you know, with ADHD and other kinds of disorders that need some kind of very even plane, because it's the same every time. It's always going to be.
Saying that, then I was thinking about, like with teenagers, where I'm stereotyping absolutely here, but stroppy teenagers, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're gonna highlighting emotional regulation, because if you get, I've done it in the past. I got frustrated with the pony that my daughter had, Jack. If I couldn't catch him in the field, I would get so frustrated with him, and he would pick up on it. I knew once I got to that point where I was getting frustrated, I need to walk out the field and go away and come back with a different frame of mind, because he would just take the mick out of me, somewhat chronic, when I was in that state. Yeah,
and that's it. It's sensory, isn't it? So it's all their feeling, what you're putting out there. You might not be wanting, you might be pretending to be, look, come on, we're going for a nice ride, but we're late. Do you know what I mean? So they know, and they're not listening to the, come on, we're going for a nice ride. They're looking at you thinking, wow, she is wired.
it's whatever.
Don't go near it.
Exactly.
I'm a what's it, animal, a prey animal. I'm going to run. And that's what they do.
So they do help you regulate your emotions, or to become aware of how stressed you are, because they're responding and reacting to it in the moment, whatever.
Yeah, it's that awareness, isn't it? And this is what we were saying, that through the sessions we've done, those that haven't been aware of something have not suddenly, but have sort of come away thinking, wow, yeah, I did not realize, because I'm on that hamster wheel of life, that actually it's running at 100 mile an hour and I really need it to be 30 mile an hour, like today, at least once a week, or at least half a day a week for me. And that's the thing that we don't do.
Yeah, it's about having that insight of where you are, because when we're doing it constantly, when our cortisol levels are high, we're just running on it all the time. And I think we were mentioning that in the last session, that adrenaline and cortisol, it's toxic stuff that's flooding through our body a lot of the time, so we never come back down to be at peace. Kind of constantly up, but it doesn't take us much to tip over the edge when we start to feel anxious or overwhelmed and all that sort of stuff, because we're not ever coming back down.
No. And that's, I think we've had a couple of clients who've done that as well, who've recognized and, like I said, come away and gone, wow, I did not realize how much not so much I didn't realize how much I've enjoyed it. I have enjoyed this more than I realized I would, because I didn't realize the place I was in. So they've come with, it always surprises me, people come with an expectation of, I have no idea what I'm coming to. And we always say, we open it, what do you think is going to happen? And a couple of times people say, well, I don't want to get on a horse. Let me just say for everybody, you will not get on a horse. You will not be mounting these horses. Absolutely not. That would be a completely different session. It's available to you, but not in these kind of things. And so that's the beauty of it, really, is that it is very surprising what we do. And I think people are surprised by their own reactions. Everybody's surprised by the horse's reactions when we start explaining what's happening. We haven't had one single client that's not been wowed by it. But I think our clients have been super surprised by their own reactions, really, and their own recognitions of things.
Yeah, and that to me is where they get lasting changes, when they have an insight, and when they recognize where they are now and where they were. That's kind of, it's all that awareness. So thank you for that, Julie.
Oh, very welcome.
What we're going to be talking about in the next one is how equine therapy, or horses, can help us face our fears.
Oh, wow. There's a biggie.
I know. Until next time.
Bye-bye.
See you later.
See ya. Thanks for listening to this episode of Healing with Horses. Please follow us on whatever platform you're currently listening on, and leave us a review.
And if you got value from this episode, please share it so that others get value from it too. You can connect with us on Facebook, Instagram and YouTube at Equine Guided Therapy.
Or you can visit our website, equineguidedtherapy.com, to book a session with us. Thanks for listening, and we hope to see you all soon.